r/AskReddit. What is the strangest thing you've seen someone do on public transport? A woman on the London tube brought 3 live ducks in harnesses onto the carriage. They were just stood there chilling and quacking away. This screams Piccadilly line. I could see it happening in Uxbridge on a market day. Dude across from me takes everything out of his backpack while kind of muttering to himself. I figure he's looking for something. He then proceeds to put the backpack on his head. Guess he needed to take a closer look. That last line sounded like a dad joke, and it made me chuckle. True dad joke would be if he started calling it a head pack, as it wasn't on his back anymore. I saw a young woman get on, early mid-20s, obliterated on drugs. She sat far back behind me, so I didn't hear anything, and the next thing I know some musclehead is yelling for the bus driver to stop the bus, and was manhandling an old mid-50s guy off the bus. Musclehead started yelling, "Get this creep off the bus, he's back there kissing a passed out girl." Although in 10 years taking the bus this is the most I've ever witnessed. Happened so the bus is genuinely a safe place to be. Little did you know his biggest muscle was actually his heart.
The heart is the strongest muscle.
In Melbourne, I've seen a lot of people chroming on the train. Upfield line, represent, which is where people inhale paint cans or petrol, usually from a plastic or paper bag. One day on my way to uni, I saw a guy inhaling from a paper bag. Oh, another chroming dude, awesome. I dismissively thought to myself. Suddenly he pulls a sandwich out of the bag and begins eating it, then throws the bag away. Mother was just inhaling his sandwich. I love how a guy just pre-tasting his sandwich is considered weirder than people huffing paint. He was just smell tasting it. Tiny elderly Chinese woman was carrying a live chicken by the feet in one hand and a shopping bag in the other. Tried to get on a bus and the driver stopped her. They argued back and forth for a bit and finally she lets out an exasperated growl, breaks the neck of the chicken, stuffs it in the bag and shouts it groceries now. I live in China and this is more Chinese than anything I've seen here. Wait a minute. No Google, no Instagram, no Facebook, but you're allowed Reddit. Serious question. She sounds like she could take on an entire Mayfair and then leave them in a vegetative state. They're groceries now. I was on a sleeper train going from Hamburg to Rotterdam and woke up in the middle of the night to a 60-ish-year-old German lady violently masturbating on the bunk opposite while staring into my very soul. I just pretended to go back to sleep. I wasn't asleep. She knew. Bonus. In the morning when we arrived and were leaving the train she winked at me. I think she liked you. What makes you think that? She may have been Canadian. 2 guys get on the same train carriage as me. I'm sitting behind them. It's mid-morning and the train is quite full on this Western Sydney line. Nonchalantly they pull out a kit consisting of syringes and spoon and cook up right there and then. They have their hit and then proceed to each spark up a smoke and not even acknowledge the other passengers. Someone must have called the police because a couple of stops later the cops met the train and come and pulled the guys off. Fellow Westie here. This is sobering but unsurprising. Doesn't sound like it was very sobering for them. A guy on a train, seesawing back and forth saying, "I will kill everyone, everyone. The streets will be flooded with blood. The day will come close. I will kill everyone. No mercy, no survivors. A feast for everyone. Even the innocent. The innocent will die." And so on. Did he stick to his word? I think not. But we don't know how the future will look like. I stayed in Istanbul for a month. During that time, I came to the conclusion that some women lean back to avoid harassment. My first encounter was very weird though. It was very crowded, and there were only 2 other girls there. Without saying anything, they wiggled their way to me, and both leaned their back on my back. Not gonna lie, I was quite spooked. Haven't experienced it anywhere else. Edit. To avoid further confusion, I want to add that I'm a girl. Since there were 2 of them, they could have just leaned against each other, which means they saw you alone and decided to help, which is nice. Saw an elderly homeless woman get up from her seat, start yelling and screaming, then start stripping. Unfortunately I couldn't get off the train to switch cars because she was blocking one end and the conductor was at the other end. Eventually, we get to the next stop, where I see police waiting. I switched cars and didn't look back 16 months until I leave New York City. Not that I'm counting or anything. A lady with a rat in her hoodie and she was whispering to it, "Be quiet, I don't want to get in trouble again." And a guy was behind me with his phone in his beanie playing Screamo really loud in his ear. This was on the one bus. Rural Australia is weird sometimes. Somehow a chef's hat would be more appropriate. You snitched. She's gonna get in trouble again. About 15 years ago I took a bus and a black woman sat next to me at the very back and asked me what I was reading. I was reading about the War of 1812 and she wanted to know everything about it. I was delighted to explain it to her. After about 10 minutes of pleasant conversation, she suddenly got up and said, "Wait just 1 minute," then goes up to a young couple at the front of the bus who were speaking in Arabic. Out of nowhere she started screaming at them and saying they were responsible for 9/11, that they were terrorists, literal pieces of shit, etc. Everyone was shocked. This was in Toronto, and the man started yelling back. The driver strangely did nothing to stop the woman, and the couple got off as soon as they could. Then, with everyone on the bus staring at her, the woman walked back to the seat next to me and tried to resume our conversation about the War of 1812, as if nothing had occurred. This is on the F train in New York City. Naturally, a homeless guy gets on the train at some random stop, proceeds to sit down like a normal, not so well adjusted homeless dude, talking to himself. As soon as the train starts moving, he drops his pants and takes a on the seat. Everyone around him seems to be intentionally looking in every other direction and pretending it didn't happen. Naturally, the homeless dude pulls out a notebook and a Sharpie and writes, "Please, do not thank you, no, I did not accidentally a word there." That is exactly what he wrote on the paper, rips out the page, then places the paper over his fresh on the seat. He got off the train at the next stop. I don't even know, dude. Not really strange, but I saw an MBTA inspector get punched in the face repeatedly by this crazy homeless black dude on the subway platform. Happened at Andrew Square. If anyone is familiar with this area in Boston, shouldn't be too surprising considering the area. The guy then takes off and tries to hop on the train, but it doesn't take off because the operator saw it happen. He closed the doors, so he couldn't get out. The cops ran by about 2 minutes after it happened. Ran up to the car he was in, got the doors opened and arrested him. He was screaming all kinds of shit, saying the cops were racist for arresting him, that this woman deserved it. Yeah, sounds about right for that area. I was on a train one afternoon coming home from work on a wet and windy winter's day. As the train pulled into the next train station I could see all the people on the platform with their coats on and standing under their umbrellas as the train went past them, slowing to a stop. As the train stopped I noticed a guy on the platform, about 6 foot tall, wearing a way too small, torn and tattered flannelette shirt. It fit him like a crop top. He had no shirt underneath, and the only other thing he was wearing was a sock. A sock that was tied around his unbelievably massive D. He was just standing there with his arms crossed, shivering in the cold with a sock tied around his giant D. Either completely oblivious to everyone looking at him in shock, or he just didn't give a. Did he wear it like a cotton condom? Also, that's some big D energy. 2 dudes smooching on a plane. They were brothers. Don't get me wrong, I love the LGBT community, but what I don't like is incest. It was weird and the flight attendant tried to make them stop, but the dudes were like, "You're just sexist and against gays." Then their mom finally made them stop. She was in a different row, so she couldn't see them, but then she probably heard them moaning or something. Don't know too much about them, but I definitely know they're from Alabama. Sweet home. Alabama. Give me a lesson in respect. I was about 11, my friend's 12 or 13. Older, tired, and poor Indian woman sitting across from us. One of my friends starts making fun of her shoes to us. I'd like to think I was uncomfortable with it, but I know I laughed with my friend. They got off the bus right away. I had to wait a few stops, and that woman talked to me. Told me it wasn't right to do what we did, and why. I don't remember what I did or said, but the whole incident as described has stuck with me for 40 years. Winnipeg'll surprise you sometimes. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for I upload daily, and suggest what subreddit I should cover next. Thank you and happy travels.